CM Punk, it looks like I don't see any way back to AEW for him, barring some miracle that they can all come together. But I think most are expecting that to be not happening. Ace Steel already released, that had been reported. And then as we kind of talked about Wednesday, kind of CM Punk's camp coming out and adding this new detail to the story about a potential injury to CM Punk's dog, Larry, that in the latest edition of The Observer, quite a few people just outright denying that aspect of it. So, it's two sides of that story. But just since we talked Wednesday night, any kind of thoughts just on what has come out and how this whole thing looks to be concluding itself?
Well, I think this whole thing, the way it's played out, has been pretty interesting because that we've, over the past several months, I feel like we've gone through so much skepticism of what we hear through reporting in the wrestling media landscape. In this case, though, I don't think that there's as much of that same skepticism. I really trust a lot of the reporting here.
And this story has been all reporting. Like there has been nothing from the company side putting any information out. The company has not even gone on the record to state an investigation took place. Like they have said nothing.
So it's reliant upon people like Dave Meltzer, people like Nick Hausman, to be able to speak out to these camps so that we at least have some of that information and really, some of that back and forth. Anyway, so the end result here seems to be just, you have a locker room that seems very distrusting of CM Punk. And that seems to me almost as big of a hurdle as anything legal, that's preventing this guy from ever coming back. It's certainly a lot more, I think, of a strained relationship than I could have even imagined, coming off of that. It seems like it's really irreparable, including, this report from Dave Meltzer that's saying Chris Jericho was among one of those names who called Punk a cancer to the locker room.
Yeah, let me just read. This excerpt from the today's issue of The Observer. In Norfolk on October 26th, it was noted that several of the top people were saying that Punk would not be back. A few names were mentioned, with Chris Jericho being the name mentioned most, but that many, if not most, of the key top names were saying that they wouldn't work with him. One top star noted, Punk won't be back. His value on screen isn't 1% worth the hassle and black cloud he causes backstage. Another top star noted, the team has decided he's out, and regardless of some being willing to work with him, the collective decided that he was voted off the island. Quote, a completely made up story, said one person close to the other side. He, referring to Punk, losing in the investigation results and is desperate. There was a multiple weeks long investigation and this was oddly not discovered. This was referring to the Larry the dog injury. Also, it so happened to be mentioned the moment there was news about the Bucks and Omega possibly coming back. It's insane that people would even humor this. Another person there at the time said it's very clear that the story about the dog never happened. So this is certainly one that you are looking at of, this investigation that went through. How is this detail never brought up? How is this detail never presented on Punk's side? Now, it was also interesting to note that they mentioned in the story that Lucy Guy, the wife of Ace Steel, was never spoken to. And I find that to be, maybe she wasn't a central figure in this whole thing, but I mean, what harm does it do to get as many perspectives that were in the room as possible? So, I mean, that was, I would certainly, look at why wouldn't you speak to her? But the dog story just seems like this one has just come out of left field, and I don't know what to make of it. If like, I really like, sometimes I can at least like put together some kind of working theory of like what makes sense here. And I really don't have a great answer for this, but for it to have not come out anywhere from those on Punk's side in the investigation, and then it comes out this week, like it just sounds like a very strange story. And obviously plenty of people in AEW just, flat out denying that happened.
Certainly sounds fishy when you put it that way. You know, the fact that like this was, I mean, a rather serious detail of an innocent creature getting it injured here, and it not coming to light until this moment. Is it at all possible that like these might have been injuries that we wouldn't have been able to know about until after the fact? I don't know. It sounds like according
Not
to
not in
some
the
of
investigation. Like how does that not come up?
okay, so we know that it didn't come up in the internal investigation.
I mean, that's what these sources are stating.
Okay.
And the fact that, if that was the case, I mean, would this be the conclusion of the investigation? If like a dog was harmed in the midst of all of this? I mean, it just seems very odd. I mean, like,
So again, we have to remember this is Nick Hausman speaking to members of CM
Punk's
Punk's
camp is
quote
how it's
unquote
identified.
camp.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not reportedly from the words of Phil Brooks himself. But nonetheless, it's an odd story. And if it comes out that this was untrue, it is very damning for whoever is the person that spoke to Nick in trying to use something like this to try to gain sympathy. Will we ever like know the truth beyond, like a number of people saying that this is not true? Like
It's going to depend on what if there ends up being a contract buyout, like what are certain things that the parties agree to? I mean, if there's any kind of, like, I don't expect the AEW parties to talk about any of this. Punk,
Right.
on the other hand, I mean, does he sign a non-disparagement agreement? Maybe not. I mean, he put himself in that position when he left WWE that he was free to talk about all of this stuff and did so famously. You have to imagine at some point maybe more will come out because there's still, I think, a lot of unknown in this entire ordeal going back months and months at this point. But I mean, at the same time, if you are not painting if you do not come out as the sympathetic party, I mean, are you going to be volunteering information either? I mean, it's a whole question. I guess it's very much unknown because these guys may be saddled with restrictions to talk about this.
Right. Another point, that seems to be brought up in the current reporting is that there are no current lawsuits being levied against either party from either party. I suppose it could change in the future, but for now, it seems to be staying out of the courts.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something that I'm sure they would want to avoid because that would allow a lot of information to come out if this ever got to, that far away. I mean, if a lawsuit was launched and it ever got to a trial, well, then you would see plenty come out in that side. And I'm sure probably both sides are not eager to go that route at all. But, it was interesting, like, as well, in the Wrestling Inc. article, again, coming from Punk's camp, like it cited like a law in Illinois. So, I mean, it was, somebody that was like using a legal defense for Punk's actions in terms of defending himself in that locker room as well. So that's, kind of, you are looking at, legal defenses as well.
I'm sure everybody will, on either side will have an argument and a legal justification that probably fits their I don't know, their motive for an attack. Jeez. But yeah, will it hold up in court? Like, did the door actually get kicked down? Will we ever truly find the answer? I don't know. At this point, we might just have to rely on the reporting, and also I suppose really the court of public opinion. But from the looks of things, at least from what I've seen on the online reaction, it's very much an anti CM Punk sort of feeling I get from the audience right now.
And what do you feel this does for I won't even say reputation of CM Punk. I think his reputation somewhat preceded him. I think people largely knew, like, the good and the bad you get with Phil Brooks. This is kind of, I think, probably taken even like those that have really backed Punk and probably placed
Big
a little
time.
more.
This was a different level though, John. Like again, the contrast, the incredible contrast from the closing moment of All Out, CM Punk in his hometown holding the championship, triumphant, battling back from that foot injury to make it here. And then this wonderfully celebratory vibe as he sat down for that press conference, and then the way it changed in seconds with his legendary at this point, notorious, infamous words and a few muffins. Everything changed in that moment. So we all, I think the audience knew that this was a man who was outspoken, and we loved him for being outspoken. But I think for the most part, like we always, the audience, and I speak for the audience because why not? Always saw him at the side of the moral good. You know, the person kind of fighting against the oppressor, the person fighting for the underdog, the person fighting for the person that is looking for justice. And very quickly, I think that narrative's changed into him being the bully, into him being the oppressor. And in this case, seemingly acting, out of a level of paranoia that might have always been there, but has been taken certainly perhaps to a larger, unjustified level right now.
I will say this. I do believe that if there's one consistency about Phil Brooks, it has been when he has his convictions. I mean, he will go to the ends of the earth to defend those beliefs and those convictions. And if you look at it from his side of, like, if you want to trace this back to the Hangman promo before Double or Nothing, his belief that was a personal slight on him. He is the number one star. He is the top babyface. And here he is being called out on television for something that he did not perceive as a line to build up business, but a personal attack on him. Whether you believe that to be the case or not, that was clearly his takeaway from that was a shot at him, and he felt wronged in that moment and double-crossed on live television. And therefore, I think that informed his defense and justification to do what he did to Hangman Page on television. That was his shot. And then second is that if you are, and he was adamant about this, as was Tony Khan, that he had nothing to do with Colt Cabana's contract status with AEW, if in fact he did not have anything to do with that, I think he had every right to defend himself and do so in a public way at the press conference. But then it devolved into what it did at that press conference, and you just torpedoed this company right in front of your boss and are in essence insulting him to his face, that you have put these people in these places, these children as he labeled them. And it was scorched earth from that moment. Like, after that press conference, how he could go back into that locker room when he's gone on television, like Hangman Page took it like on the chin multiple times from this guy on live television for that call out, and then again at the press conference, and he has been silent this whole time. It was so much that I just felt there was no coming back from this, in the sense of bringing this guy back into your locker room where you could turn back time and get things back to a working relationship with all of these different factions.
I think we can all understand the reasons why Phil Brooks, said what he said, why he'd be upset at, these rumors that were being spread online about him that he says are untrue. The fact that other people might be, bringing up things about his character in a promo that he wasn't happy with. But I think the moment where like it escalates beyond like, this the on-screen product, and you have a real personal issue with it, I think that's when you should be smart enough and professional enough to take it off the airwaves and to try to deal with it in a behind the scenes professional setting, rather than deciding to throw everything out there, amplifying everything through either a press conference or worse, the on-screen product itself. That's where I think he crossed the line. I mean, we're not even speaking about, the physical altercation, which really was, probably the biggest thing here in all of this. But simply like deciding to, rather than go to whatever, talent relations persons that you have to try to air these issues out, or the people directly in the back to try to air these issues out. I personally felt like it was Phil Brooks that, was a driving force in wanting to turn this into an even bigger issue through the public, I guess, outlets.
This could have played itself out in such a different way if there was an understanding of what the truth was, and an ability for these different sides to air out these grievances and find out what was what, and what, like, the accusation that it was the elite that leaked all of this information out there that reporters have stated was not the case. I mean, were you so defiantly making that accusation off of a hunch, or did you have concrete proof of that? Because you put your tenure with this company on the line, you better have irrefutable proof of what you are accusing at this press conference.
So that's the other thing. I don't think he necessarily felt like he was putting it on the line. Like, to me, there was a real air of like, invincibility about him as he goes.
100%. 100%.
I don't think
choosing that outlet with Tony Khan next to him, he was untouchable. And in this industry, the history is you would be untouchable if you are a guy in that position in the company. Historically, CM Punk is not the fall guy in this kind of a situation. They will go to the ends of the earth to protect and shield someone from that, no matter how bad they screw up. And it's why this is such a unique case where they are choosing to walk away from their biggest star, their number one star.
And that behavior and sort of that feeling of, untouchability might be as big of a reason for his lack of being welcomed back into the locker room as anything else. Even if they could agree and apologize for the physical altercation, do you, as leaders of a locker room, if you're Chris Jericho or if you're even Tony Khan, would you want to disrupt the harmony and sort of like the these sort of obedience, I guess you could say, of like, a locker room by having one person out there who thinks they're above the whole thing?
Do you think Punk is regretful or feeling he was in the wrong?
I think I don't think he thinks he's in the wrong.
I don't know if you're getting an apology out of him. I don't think so. This guy does not have a history of a cooler head prevailing at the end. He seems someone that is absolutely tied to his beliefs of what is right and what was wrong. And without having any evidence, I would imagine he believes that he was in the right in this entire thing.
Yeah.
He certainly did on that night.
And listen, I know they've done an internal investigation that seems to have found, Punk to be the bigger culprit, resulting in his firing and the elite coming back.
Oh, clearly.
Right. But can we as a public like definitively say that Punk was wrong for sure without knowing the results of the investigation?
I think that, in a perfect world, I'm not stating that you would get full transparency, but something. And I mean, again, we don't even have the acknowledgement of an investigation happened from this company. So I think you might as well be going after the Pentagon Papers when it comes to the findings of this investigation. But I think you would want to know, like, and believe me, I don't look at this as history will dictate one side was right and one was wrong. But I think certainly there's blame that can be assigned that all of this got to a point it never should have.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But in the end, what's an apology going to do? I don't think even with one, I don't know if his is a personality that this company is looking to bring back in.
Only if you were hoping for the ultimate solution of bringing all these players back to work together, which would have
Right.
been the ideal solution. But that to
Mhm.
me was something that would have had to have been taking place weeks, if not months, before All Out. At
At
that
the
point, it was too late.
At this point, this wound is so big, it's still so fresh that I mean, the only thing that can really heal it will be time. Maybe the years down the line, we'll be, talking about a sit down interview or between all of them, and then maybe you'll get an exchange of an apology. But by then, these people might be in their 50s. So at least to me in the near future, with the types of egos that are involved, with how again how big this altercation has entirely been, I don't see that apology and that sit down happening anytime soon.
My last question. So I put this poll out today because CM Punk is up this year for the Observer Hall of Fame, as he was last year. And last year, he got 33% of the votes. You need 60 to get in. And last year, the deadline was like December 1st. So it did account for the first couple of months of AEW. Do you think he gets in this year?
So let's remind the audience and also me about what the exact qualifications are for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame.
Historical significance, in-ring contributions, drawing power. I mean, these are all like major. Ideally, you want to have like all these areas, but if one is so superior, it can override the others. But drawing is obviously kind of paramount to all of this.
That aspect, drawing, to me is, it can range so greatly, depending on the size of your promotion, the size of I guess the area that you're wrestling. And I hear about those qualifications, and to me, I think CM Punk is a shoe-in. So I'm very curious to know what the justification for him not being in it will be under those rules.
I was surprised he didn't get more support last year. I voted for him last year. But again, only 33%. But I think it's a very strong case that he has. And he's probably, like, this year will be an interesting result because he is, like, people a generation removed won't remember this, but Shawn Michaels had a hell of a time getting into the Observer Hall of Fame, which sounds ludicrous today, but it was for all of the backstage problems that he caused and whether he was a detriment. And Punk's going to wear some of that this year.
So again, like you mentioned, those traditional, I guess, categories, used to determine whether or not somebody should be in the company. Where would backstage behavior fall into that?
I mean, it comes down to the voter of what they feel like was someone so detrimental to business overall. Like, you can argue like what Shawn did. To me, it does not come close to what his positive contributions were, but everyone is going to have their own beliefs. Like, it gets into a murky territory when you're sort of voting on the individual rather than the performer and what they did. But that was a hang up for Shawn for several years before he got in. And last year, it just seemed that, coming off the United Center sellout and All Out and Grand Slam, that, man, here he has come in, he has moved AEW business, but it seemed people wanted to, let's give it a year of what he does in AEW. And if you take out that last night at All Out, he rose, like, all of the pay-per-views went up with him, where he was the key driver on those pay-per-views. He was a big merchandise seller. Like, it was an incredible year, 13 months that he had with this company. It's off on a down note, but to me, that does not override the business that he brought to this company over this year. And when you add it to the totality of what he has meant for influence in terms of a generation that have now got into the industry, the health of and awareness of various independent wrestling, what he has done, like, just, seismic moments of professional wrestling of this generation. And you go to the Pipe Bomb promo, the Cabana podcast, coming back and coming back to AEW, and selling out the United Center without even advertising his name. He has been part of some gigantic moments in professional wrestling.
And here's what I don't really understand about people that are voting no because of specifically either the press conference or the physical altercation in the back. When we're talking about growth for the business, when we're talking about, I think, attention given to the business, we've seen some of our best numbers because of these CM Punk stories. Every outlet, news outlet, every news wrestling website, every wrestling forum, every wrestling Twitter has seen
and
some of the
multiple
biggest
times,
traction
multiple
because
times
of CM Punk. Exactly.
Yes.
To this day, I'm probably
like going
gonna
back to 2011. Like that to me was like a big bridge of people finding our show was 2011, and then it happened again last year.
And again, like this is not intended behavior; it's negative behavior that you can argue is ultimately unhealthy for the business. But I mean, again, I would really love to know what some people's justifications for why he wouldn't be going in.
I'm more curious what was the holdup last year for people, because those people are not going to be convinced, I feel, this year. Maybe they will. Maybe some will look at it like this year was there's still too much evidence to vote against him. But, you know, the fact he just did 33% last year, is the last year going to help him or hurt him? And that one will be interesting. It's almost like if he doesn't get in this year and he doesn't have a big run somewhere else, I mean, does he ever get in? It's not like he was just on the bubble. He was well off last year, but it's interesting. So an interesting candidate to follow.